Alright, people. Midweek report time. This could be a long one. And I am hoping to go live at about 8 p.m. this evening. We hit 20k subscribers this week. We hit it on Tuesday. That was good. I was chuffed to bits with that. We hit 10k February last year. Only February last year we're on 20k. And we're actually, at the minute of recording this video, we are on 20,079 subscribers. So we're doing quite well. So in the last 2 days, nearly 100 subs. Not doing too bad. But big up to everyone. I appreciate everyone locking in. It's brilliant. 20k. 20 flipping k. That's a crazy amount. It is. Hitting 1,000k nearly 5 years ago was incredible. 20k, 20 times that, unreal. Shout out to everyone. Yeah, we'll do a live this evening. I have a new mic that I used with the Proper Boxing podcast, so if you haven't seen that, go and have a look at it. And I want to test it because it's a plug-in mic, so I wouldn't really go into the phone, but it works in the laptop just well. So I'm probably going to do a kind of live just without camera, and it should have some good quality to the mic, because I've actually used it on other things and it seems pretty good. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk boxing. What a week it's been. Let's start. So let's kind of work our way down from most recent down below. So the US pay-per-view price for Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois, which is going up September 21st, live on the Zone. Just saying, live on the Zone. That would be $19.99 US dollars. I mean, damn, that's by US standards. Someone told me that the price of McGregor Mayweather was $100. Honestly, like, that's insanity. And this is obviously, you don't need to tell me, a way more competitive fight on a particularly good undercard, and you're paying significantly less, $80 less. That's a bargain if ever I seen one. That's the US pay-per-view price. Is it the Zone in the US or is it ESPN? I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure it is the Zone anyway. So that is the pay-per-view price in the US. Let's talk about Anthony Joshua very, very briefly, because Eddie Hearn was on with Simon Jordan on Tuesday. And he was talking about Simon Jordan is trying to, as I've said before, and since I've started doing some more videos on Simon Jordan, people who didn't really know who he was, and maybe wouldn't be regular listeners of TalkSport, have since told me that they've, went and they've had a listen to some of Simon Jordan's thoughts on boxing on TalkSport, and like me, they can't quite believe sometimes what they hear. And Simon Jordan is, it's quite sad really, the way he just incessantly pushes Queensberry fighters. Like, he's not picking Daniel Dubois, but he's trying to make a case that Dubois quitting against Alexander Usyk and Joshua, in his opinion, quitting against Andy Ruiz, which I personally don't feel happened, is the same. Well, the difference is, and I don't believe Anthony Joshua quit against Andy Ruiz. Anthony Joshua, in that round 7, had chances to quit. He went down twice in that round, and he could have sat that count out if he really wanted to, and he didn't. He got up each time. Yes, the mouthpiece was out on the second knockdown. Michael Griffin waved it off. Anthony Joshua, I think, was stalling for time. And a lot of people have said that. And normally a referee, see, if you've only been down once and you're stalling for time, a referee will probably give you a bit of good grace and probably let you away with that. They'll probably, it's frowned upon, but they'll probably let you away with it. You've been down 4 times and you're starting to do that, yeah, they're not going to let you away with it. I think with Joshua, he knew the writing was on the wall. Just try your best to get out of this mess. And he couldn't. And I have no issue with that stoppage that Michael Griffin did. Do I think Joshua quit? No. And listen, there are other ways to quit a fight. It's not necessarily just sitting the count out. But his body language in that Ruiz fight was that of a man who knew his time was up. But I think he would have went out on his shield. When Michael Griffin stopped it, it was a real case of, all right, you stopped it. I would have carried on, but I think I know the right was on the wall. I don't think that's the same as going down or even getting up and just kind of showing no interest, being like, do you want to continue? Yeah, that to me is very different. That to me is very different to what Joshua did. He was also talking about Daniel Dubois, his punching power, bringing PTSD back to Anthony Joshua. And listen, I've said this once, I'll say it again. I'm actually currently working on the Dubois 3 reasons why he beats Joshua video, and punching power, little, spoiler, is one of them. And yeah, Anthony Joshua hasn't been in there with a puncher the like of Daniel Dubois since Vladimir Klitschko. And I think that's fair to say. He's fought some decent punchers, the likes of Povetkin, who is, good power, very good punching power, underrated punching power arguably. But I don't quite think he has the same brute force as a Daniel Dubois, Vladimir Klitschko. Takam, not a noted puncher. Pulev, certainly not. Usyk, respectable power, but not on Daniel Dubois' level, I wouldn't have imagined. And look at the guys he's fought. Franklin's not really a big puncher. Valin's not really a big puncher. Helenius can bang, to be fair. Helenius is a good puncher. He can bang, but he was as slow as molasses. And yeah, the jab caused Joshua some bother. It's a bit of a worry. But he never really looked like he'd be able to land one of those big bombing right hands and take Anthony Joshua out. So I would stand by that this may be the biggest puncher that Joshua's faced since Klitschko. And if he gets hit by Daniel Dubois, could he face some demons? Possibly. But Simon Jordan's trying to make it out as though Anthony Joshua, back when he fought Vladimir Klitschko, he had something to rise for. What did he have to rise for? He'd become heavyweight champion. He was already a multi-millionaire. It's not like he was trying to secure the bag. Well, he was, but he already had the bag. Now, he's got the bag times 100. But even back then in 2017, he still had the bag. So he, in theory, didn't need to carry on. If he really wanted to sit it out, he could have retired after that Klitschko fight had he lost. A very, very, very wealthy man. Wouldn't need the box again. But he kept going. So I've no doubt that if he does get put down by if he does get put down by Daniel Dubois, that he will keep going, that he will carry on. I don't think the quit is in Anthony Joshua the same way it was, and may very well still be, Daniel Dubois. I don't think that. I think Anthony Joshua just has that something there. I don't know what it is, but he has that something there. I think the fire still burns. Eddie Hearn, and I'm going a bit, I was planning to do this in sequential order, but it don't look like I'm going to do that now. He was asked actually how many fights he believes Anthony Joshua still has, and he says he believes Anthony Joshua at the moment plenty. I've never seen him enjoy boxing so much. Preparation, the team, I think he's really found the rhythm with Ben Davison and the camp there. If you look back at the Alexander Usyk fight, you might have said, how many more fights? 3, 5? Well, we've had 4 since then. Now we're 5, more still. Alright, more still is not necessarily a number, but I suspect Anthony Joshua probably has about 4 or 5 fights left in him. If I was to suspect, I would say that he probably does, provided he keeps winning, and provided that if he does take a loss, it's not a very devastating loss. I suspect he still has that. So Eddie Hearn on Simon Jordan, and there's more to Eddie Hearn and Simon Jordan, which I'll touch on later in this video, but yeah, Simon Jordan is someone who, whenever you look or he gives his opinion on boxing, you take it very much so with a grain of salt. And especially when it comes to someone like Tyson Fury or a contemporary of Tyson Fury, you take everything he said. I mean, at the end of the day, when Carl Froch a year ago went on Simon Jordan and tried to make it out as though Anthony Joshua beat a Klitschko who was retired for 2 years, when the Fury fight wasn't even a year and a half prior, and he'd spent the whole of 2016 chasing Tyson Fury around, trying to get that rematch, but Fury was the one who kept cocking up. And Carl Froch will turn around and say he was retired and out of the ring for 2 years, which is a blatant lie. And Simon Jordan just... Yes. And that kind of tells you all you need to know about Simon Jordan when it comes to boxing and who he likes and who he doesn't like. It's as simple as that. Now, this is a big announcement. Well, a big announcement. It's an interesting announcement. So, there is a rumour mill. I say rumour. There was a rumoured report a couple of days ago, not even weeks, days ago, that O'Hara Davis will be facing Adam Mazim. And O'Hara Davis went on X and refuted that claim, saying, oh, this is what the media do, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And today, a couple of days later, it's announced that Adam Mazim will face O'Hara Davis in a 140-pound clash on October the 19th at the Copper Box Arena in London. Now, I'm not going to lie. That's a good fight. That's an interesting fight. It's a dangerous fight for Adam Azim. Adam Azim is Adam Azim is a fighter who, there's a bit of talent there. There's athleticism. There's speed, but there's a lot of red flags when you look at him at the same time. And back in 2022, you got the impression, or early 23, you got the impression that this guy was going to be fast-tracked. He was going to be a star. Talk about pay-per-views last year. That hasn't came to fruition, certainly not even close. But then you look at the matchmaking and you're just kind of like, huh? He won a European title against a fairly obscure opponent, and his mandatory was Dalton Smith. He instantly vacated that title, and they were actually trying to get a Harlem Eubank Jr. fight over the line. And by all accounts, it seems like it was Dalton Smith or Adam Azim was the one. I'm messing up names something terrible tonight, aren't I? By all accounts, it seemed like it was Adam Azim who was the reason that fight didn't happen. Now, maybe Ben Shalom looked at Harlem Eubank and thought, might not do as good a numbers as O'Hara Davis, because O'Hara Davis is the villain. People know who he is, and probably brings a little bit more to the table in terms of name recognition. However, he is coming in off the back of a first round knockout defeat to Ismael Barroso, who lost on the undercard of Inoue versus Dohney the other day. So, make it that what you will. But he vacated that title rather than fight Dalton Smith. And I've often said, when it comes to European titles, British titles, things like that, if you have a mandatory who is particularly dangerous and you vacate that title, but you move up a level. So if you are British champion, I'll give you an Isaac Chamberlain, his mandatory was Chev Clark. He chose to go and push for a European title. I don't consider that a duck, because you're going actually up a level. It'd be like winning a European title. If Adam Azim won that European title and said, I'm vacating this because I want to crack at a champion, a legit champion at 140 pounds, I would have said, okay, fair enough. He's not ducking Adam Azim. He's not ducking Dalton Smith. He is purely looking for a title shot. That arguably will be a harder fight, so fair enough. He didn't do that. He went down a level, and the excuse was, oh, well, he's not ready. Excuse me. You fight for an EBU title, you win it, you then have a responsibility. If you are ready to fight for an EBU title, you are ready to defend it. Ben Shalom, get the hell out of here. So now he's going in there with O'Hara Davis. It will be interesting. O'Hara Davis is a decent long-range boxer. He's done okay at domestic level. He lost soundly to Josh Taylor, but Josh Taylor ended up becoming undisputed at 140, so that loss, at domestic level, when you're talking about peak Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall wouldn't have even been able to manage that. He lost to Jack Catterall in a horrific fight in Leicester 6 years ago now. It really truly was awful. I put myself through the ringer of watching that fight at the time. That whole card went on. I think Leon Woodstock he might have fought Zelfa Barrett or Archie Sharp, one or the other, as a headliner. That was well after midnight again, that fight, main event started. That O'Hara Davis Jack Catterall fight was horrendous. It was so bad. He lost that fight, and neither guy really deserved to win that fight. It was a close fight, could have went either way. Neither guy deserved to win it, and it could have went either way because neither guy did anything. It's as simple as that. Neither guy did jack what in that fight. So really that could have went either way. And then obviously they were his only losses. He beat Lewis Ritson last year. It was a decent performance, to be fair. And then it seemed like he was ready for a shot at Rolly Romero. Rolly ends up fighting Pitbull, and he goes in there to fight Ismael Barroso for the interim title, I believe it was, and gets starched in a round. I mean, that really was just, I don't even know how you come back from that. So he's back in there now, and listen, O'Hara Davis will put eyes on the fight. He's definitely a puncher. He certainly can bang, so that will be interesting to see how Azim handles that if he gets clipped by O'Hara Davis. I actually like this fight. I would make Azim favourite because we don't know where O'Hara Davis's head is going to be at. But yeah, that's a really, really interesting fight. It's a really interesting fight. Brian Norman Jr., the man who thought that 1.7 mil was not enough to fight Boots Ennis and is now going to be fighting on the undercard of Keyshawn Davis versus Gustavo Lemos against a guy called Derek Chavez. I wonder how much are you going to get for that, mate? You going to get your 1.7 million? I seriously doubt it. I don't know what the situation is with Boots Ennis. A part of me thinks that, look, Eddie Hearn lost the purse bid. Not the end of the world. He's lost many of them. Many of them over the last few years. I can't remember the last time he won a purse bid, actually. And the rematch with that guy, Cameron, long last name, sorry, is going to take place. I suspect and I wonder, Eddie Hearn was talking about Conor Benn in his most recent interview with Simon Jordan. He was mentioning the fact that Conor Benn handled the failed PED test very badly, which he absolutely did. I agree with you there wholeheartedly, Eddie Hearn. But he also mentioned an announcement for Conor Benn in October, and a part of me wonders, is he actually going to announce that Conor Benn is returning? He's highly ranked by the IBF. Could they offer this guy step aside and do Boots versus Benn? They'd probably make a decent amount of money in the UK. World title fight, Conor Benn, O2 Arena, Boots Ennis. Probably could make a decent amount of money, so we'll wait and see what happens there. Eddie Hearn has been told that he doesn't think Terence Crawford, will ever fight again. Listen to this. I don't think Crawford will fight again. I think because he's really made solid money in his last couple of fights. I don't think he wants to fight Virgil Ortiz or Boots Ennis. I think the only way Crawford will fight again is Canelo Alvarez, because he got used to that pay. He probably thinks he'll fight again, but it wouldn't be a surprise to me if he didn't. So inactive as well. I think he's happy to sit out until the end of next year. He'll just be waiting for the Canelo fight to come up. I hope Eddie Hearn is wrong with that, but at the same time, Turki Al-Sheikh has kind of hinted at that as well, that Crawford really is holding out for the Canelo fight. And at the end of the day, he's not getting any younger. You know, we look at Terence Crawford and we talk about, oh, could he do this, could he do that? He's going on 37 years old. For a welterweight, 154 pounder, I should say, that's old. Even a heavyweight, you'd be looking and thinking, oh, it's kind of on the cusp there. Well, he's at 154 pounds. So it does seem like he wants that Canelo bag. I'm sure he'll give his all. He won't just lie down, but he clearly wants that Canelo bag. If he doesn't get it, wouldn't shock me if he does walk away. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Ben Shalom has revealed that he believes Martin Bakole versus Zhilei Zhang will happen next, after His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh called for the heavyweight bout. You know, there was talk from Frank Warren that we'd see a rematch between Parker Zhang, and I don't think the public demand was quite there for that fight. I'm sure Frank Warren would have wanted to do it, it's all in-house, but the public would have looked at that fight and said, you know what, first fight there was a bit of intrigue because we didn't know what might happen. We know now what happens. Parker outworks Zhang. Zhang has the power to knock down Parker, but he doesn't have the gas tank, and it ends in a fairly lackluster affair with a few brief moments of woo, and that's it. So there's no real appetite there. Whereas Bakole versus Zhang, arguably the highest punch output in the heavyweight division versus arguably the worst stamina in the heavyweight division, certainly at top level, but arguably the biggest puncher. That right there is gonna be fun. Fun. Let's just talk briefly about Naoya Inoue as well. So he obviously fought TJ Dohney on Tuesday. I didn't get a chance to see most of the undercard, only the main event I got a chance to see. Naoya Inoue beating TJ Dohney. I tweeted that he hit him so hard he blew out his back. Pause. It was an interesting fight to watch, because Inoue, it was more technical than I thought it would be. Inoue seemed a little bit off put by the movement TJ Dohney was doing. He was moving excessively to some extent, but in a very kind of unorthodox kind of way, and it brought the punch output of Inoue drastically down. That's one of the things. That's one of the keys. There's very few keys to beating Inoue. But one of the things I think you need to do is not let him dictate the pace. You need to be the one to dictate it. If you want this fight fought at a slow pace, then that's what you try and do. Once Inoue gets in his stride and gets up and running, he's accurate, he hits hard, he outlands his opponent, and his offense is his defense at the same time. So it's an extremely difficult thing to try and go toe-to-toe with Naoya Inoue. It's almost impossible, certainly at these weights. So Dohney was able to bring his output down, Inoue's output down. And what he was able to then do was he was able to actually start to outwork Inoue, like in round number 3. Ultimately, 37 years old, he wasn't able to maintain that pace, and Inoue gradually with body shots broke him down. Once he broke him down, I mean, the right was on the wall, and TJ Dohney ended up getting taken out. It genuinely did look like he hit him to the rib cage, and something went on Dohney's back. Don't know the ins and outs of it, but Naoya Inoue moves on again. There is talk of him fighting Sam Goodman on Christmas Eve. So imagine this, you'll have a Usyk versus Fury on the 23rd, and then you'll have a Inoue versus Goodman on the 24th. I mean, Merry Christmas. I'm serious. But I don't necessarily mind him per se fighting Sam Goodman, but Bob Arum was talking about him versus Nakatani. Now, him versus Nakatani next year, that's very good. Fight Sam Goodman, he's your mandatory, and then fight Nakatani. But Arum is talking about him fighting Goodman, then him fighting another fight with Nakatani on the undercard, and then, whoa, hold up, Bob. Fight Goodman, then Nakatani, what's the issue? You know? So that's what I gotta say there. Daniel Dubois has insisted that he is a legitimate world champion. Well, technically, yes, he is. He says, and I quote, "I won that in the Filip Hrgovic fight. That was a world title fight and I won it. So yeah, I'm a legitimate world champion and put some respect on my name." Right, well, I hate to break it to you, Dubois, but your fight against Filip Hrgovic was for the the interim title. At the time, it wasn't a world title fight, so you're very much wrong there. An interim title is not a world title. You may as well have said it was a final eliminator. Are you a legit world champion? Well, you got elevated to full champion, so the history books will say that. So yeah, I would say you're a legit world champion. But to turn around and say, I won that fight and that was a world title fight, well, it just wasn't. So no. You fought Filip Hrgovic in an interim title fight. Very different from it being a world title fight. It's a big difference. So when people are saying, you know, oh, well, you got elevated, your fight with Hrgovic, it wasn't a world title fight, Dubois. I'm just saying. God, there's a lot of news coming out. Holy God. It's been a busy couple of days. This midweek report is a long one. And the reason why I'm kind of not necessarily rushing through it a little bit, but I'm trying to get as much into this as I can because I have to do a live with you guys at 8 p.m. So I don't want this to go on too long. Before I finish, let's just preview some of the fights this coming weekend. So we have Sam Noakes versus a guy, Gianluca Caleggi. I think I say that guy's name. An Italian fighter. This is for the EBU title. His record is 21-4 and 1 draw. Only 4 knockouts. He's 34 years old from San Valentino in Torino in Italy. So he comes into this fight. His last loss was Yvonne Mendy back in 2022. Lost that fight on points. Lost many years ago, nearly a decade ago, to Anthony Yigit, who is not he's retired now, Swedish fighter. Never particularly good. And looking at the scorecards, he took what he was, I want to say he took a beating, but he was losing every round. So, and then retired after 6 rounds in an 8-rounder. Not a great look. Fought to another guy called Manuel Lancia. Never heard of this guy at all. Ended his career 15-2. Not fought since 2018. So lost to him on points in 2013. That was for an Italian title. Lost to Andrea Scarpa. Do you remember him? Do you remember Andrea Scarpa? Eddie Hearn had him on a couple of Matchroom shows. Fought the likes of O'Hara Davis. Fought the likes of, what was his name? John Wayne Hibbert. Do you remember him? Eddie Hearn used to promote him. He had some pretty bizarre, I say bizarre, but he had some pretty obscure fighters in the Matchroom books back in the day. That's who he lost to many years ago in 2012. So I would imagine this guy probably seen better days. Probably is not the most durable. Sam Noakes hits very hard for his weight. So you'd imagine this is going to be a run-of-the-mill fight for Sam Noakes. Masoud Abdullah, shout out to him. Sponsored by Proper and the Proper Podcast. I remember seeing him fight in the Copper Box back in February. I was ringside for that fight. And I was looking at the guy. He had a good performance that night. I was looking at his shorts and I was like, that does say Proper, doesn't it? So I couldn't believe that he put that on his shorts. But he's in there against George Stewart. 7-0, 22 years old. Looks about 12 years old in his BoxRec pick. Only 1 stoppage win. And yeah, coming into this fight, he picked up the Celtic featherweight title in his last fight. He's from Inverness up there in Scotland. I've been very impressed with Masoud Abdullah, and I envision a big knockout win. Stephen Kearns on the undercard as well. Joshua Frankham, Luke McCormick. It's a typical Friday fight night for Queensbury. So, you know, I'll tune in. I'll tune in if I'm not out and about. And yeah, that's the weekend's boxing. So, lads, I'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. I want to get to 20. I'm on 20. I want to get to 30. Like that. So I'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Peace.